When it comes to any game of strategy, you want to waste as little resources as necessary. In Age of Empires 2 Deathmatch, one very important resource is time. While I've already shown you how important hotkeys are for saving this resource, another way to save time is to build your base as efficiently as possible. In this video, I'll tell you how to lay out your early game deathmatch base in a way to minimize waste, as well as to give you some tips and tricks to make it easier to do so. To start off, the first category of inefficiency we can tackle is villager build time. You may not know this, but villagers work more efficiently when they build their own separate buildings. This is why at the start of a deathmatch game, you will rarely see expert players put all their villagers on one building, and instead put one villager on a house and the other two on barracks or stables. This allows several buildings to be created faster over time, meaning you can get more military units out early, wasting less of that all-important resource, time. The second category of inefficiency to be removed is villager walk time. As any good worker knows, the less time spent walking to your job and the more time doing it, the better. As such, place your buildings in a way that minimizes travel time. Obviously, to do this, in the early stages of a deathmatch game, make the buildings as close together as you can. This means while the common knowledge of build your buildings in a circle around the town center is correct, you need to keep in mind that they need to be only one tile away from the town center. Also, don't let your military buildings touch each other. As we all know, traffic jams only lengthen and extend travel times, which we definitely want to avoid. In simple terms, make each building only one tile apart from both each other and the town center, and only make them further away when absolutely necessary. Now, you may find it difficult to place the buildings quickly in this way, but there are a few tips I can give you. Tip number 1, use the grid mod. This lets you actually see the tiles, making it far easier to place the buildings accurately. Tip number 2, it's more important to place your base accurately than to place it fast. As you get more accustomed to placing your base, you'll naturally get faster, but make sure to learn the correct way to start, so no cheating. Tip number 3, remember to ghost build. Now, I've just introduced a new vocabulary word and a very important concept, so let's take a bit to talk about it. Ghost building is the act of placing the foundation of a building but not starting work on it. A foundation is considered ghost built when units can still walk over it. Ghost building makes you a faster player because you can rapidly predetermine your base layout, and your villagers will, for the most part, automatically change buildings when they're finished creating one. Specifically, the correct technique to ghost building is to place a total of 4 military foundations before your 4th villager is created. You do this by placing those first 2 stable or barracks foundations, and then directly behind these 2 villagers, place another foundation. Make sure to immediately retask the villager back to the original building though, to not waste villager build time. As a result, your first few villagers will immediately start work on a new building without having to walk very far at all. In order to do this properly though, make sure your first 2 buildings are placed so that way you can fit 2 or more behind the villagers. Otherwise, your ghost building will fail and you have done your opening incorrectly. This will take a lot of practice to master, but it is absolutely worth it. Anyway, the foundations to these 4 military buildings, as well as a new house for your first house villager, should be placed before the 4th villager comes out of the town center. Otherwise, that villager will be idle, wasting time. Select this new 4th villager and use it to ghost build the rest of your starting base. This means create about 4 or more of the first type of building, and around 6 or more of a new type of building, as well as houses. I know this villager will technically be idle during this time, but if you get the placement of your foundations out of the way, you'll be able to micro the villagers to keep them on separate buildings. Now that you know how to make the buildings as close as possible, you need to know some advice on handling certain situations. First, to keep from getting housed, make sure you have at least 1/4 of your villagers creating houses at all times during the early game. If you start to notice that you're housed, put more onto houses. If you start to notice that you have extra population space in excess of 30, consider moving a few villagers onto other buildings. However, make sure to never get housed if possible. Also, relatedly, expect your opponent's scout to try to kill some of your juicy villagers. You don't want to let him succeed because that can drastically slow down your crucial early game. In general, you only have 3 options to protect your villagers. You can quick wall them, you can garrison them in the town center, or you can attack the scout with a freshly created military unit. When quick-walling villagers, make sure to delete the walls afterwards to avoid traffic jams. When garrisoning them, make sure to ungarrison them afterwards, because an idle villager in a town center is just as useful as a dead one. My rule of thumb is that it's fine to lose one villager, but no more. As such, it's simply best just to make sure I start to create a military unit as soon as possible. Today, I've taught you the techniques to setting up a base in Deathmatch. However, you need to practice them in order to become competent. Set up your hotkeys and join a few matches. You may lose drastically at first, but that's okay, just so long as you're giving it your best and learning. However, we're not done with the base setup yet at all. After all, you still need to know what buildings to make. We will go over this very important topic by evaluating all the unit classes and different building choices in the next 2 episodes of the series, so be sure to subscribe and turn notifications on to learn when the next one comes out. Anyway, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.